You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. We are talking to Michael, Dr. Woody Woodward, who's a certified professional coach. He's trained in the field of organizational psychology, and he recently re-released his book called The U Plan, Y-O-U, a 5-step guide to taking charge of your career in the new economy. Dr. Woody, a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Doug.
The book is called The U Plan. Can you tell us what the book is about?
Sure. And the U Plan basically is my perspective, which is the perspective of an organizational psychologist on how to pursue careers considering the current global climate that we're facing. Right now, it is no longer about chasing opportunities. It's really about creating opportunities. We have seen, certainly I'm here in the U.S., and we've seen unemployment, continue to stay stubbornly high. You're seeing challenges all throughout Europe and around the world. And so what I'm trying to tell people, and the reason I title it the U Plan, is you can't wait for someone else to bail you out. You cannot wait for banks or the governments to come do something for you. You need to do something for yourself. And so the idea is to step back, be introspective, and think about how you can take charge and do things for yourself.
Well, that sounds like a very radical libertarian view in today's market. We speak to people all across the political spectrum on this show, and that definitely
Sure.
sounds like those who are pushing for the government to lay off. But I know you're not a government person. You really work with real live people and talk to them about what's important. One of the things you've mentioned is that people really need to have passion, which is a critical ingredient for success.
Right.
I want to ask you about that in terms of people's jobs, but then in a minute we're going to talk about how that relates to their personal finance. How do you develop passion?
Sure. I'll tell you a great story. I was at a job fair once and this was at the height of the recession here in the U.S. I was standing at in this big auditorium. There were thousands of people there looking for jobs, and maybe 50 employers there, and I'd say only a third of them actually had jobs to offer. People are standing in line, they're waiting. Yeah, it was really tough. And the director of the event comes up to me and she says, Woody, can you give me some advice, something I could write in my newsletter to tell these people? And I said, you know what? They need to be able to harness their passion and demonstrate it. And she said, no, just give me something that's helpful. That's of no value to me. I can't write about that. And it just so happens that behind me, the vice president of a major rental car company overheard the conversation. He walks up and he says, yeah, I couldn't help but overhearing you guys talk. And he said, you really don't think passion matters to this woman? And she said, no. And he said, look around. Who do you think is going to stand out to me when I've got 100 people coming up and I have maybe one job to offer? And I'm talking about customer service or interacting with people. Who is it that's going to stand out to me, that's going to excite me and say, wow, I like that person because they've got the feel, they've got the flair, they've got the enthusiasm. And you've got to demonstrate that in any part of your life. And Doug, whether it's finance, whether it's money, whether it's how you invest, what you invest in, whether it's making decisions about your career or your choices in life, it's best to go with things where you have some kind of passion behind it. Now, to get to your question, when you say, how do you develop it? I think, first of all, you have to understand what it is that excites you. What is it that gets you bounding out of bed in the morning and running down the street ready to go? Because we all know there are certain things that we just hate to do, we dislike, or they're uncomfortable. And sometimes that's a part of natural life. You got to get over some of those things. But I want people to spend most of their time pursuing things that give them some kind of excitement and feel or thrill. And it's up to you to figure that out. I cannot tell you what your passions are. But in the book, I can guide you through figuring it out for yourself.
Okay, so let's relate this topic to something more personal finance. In my day-to-day job, my day job is that I'm a financial advisor. I work with people. We build financial plans. We help them to manage their stocks and bonds and their portfolios. I talk a lot about the importance of goal setting, trying to figure out where you want to go, because, as they say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Right.
I want to inspire my clients to have a passion towards being able to pay for their retirement, being able to pay for their kids' school or take that vacation. Right. The problem is, at the end of the day, we're talking about budgeting, stocks, right, bonds. For most people, frankly, this doesn't really strike any passion inside them. What would you suggest I say?
Yeah, Doug, that's an interesting point because, yes, for us lay people, a lot of these numbers can be exhausting to go through. And you're hitting us with all the technical details of how we invest and long-term thinking. And sometimes it just numbs our mind for some of us. We're like, I don't know what to do. So what I would say for you and any folks out there who are investors or investment planners is to think of it this way, is what is the vision? Is to get them to step back, because sometimes the numbers can be overwhelming to people. And just the thought of how much it might cost to do certain things can be a little scary. But step back and say, what is the vision? Just like before any kind of sports game, right? A coach is going to look at the team and say, this is what winning looks like. This is what it feels like. And when they start to put their hands around what that retirement home looks like, where it is, what the lifestyle is going to be like, then you could say to them, how does that feel? Does it excite you? Is it fun? Well, guess what? We have to pay for it. And at the end of the day, the only way that excitement is going to come to fruition is if we follow certain steps. And like you said, I think going back to the roadmap, is you cannot get somewhere if you don't know where you're going. But and the important part of goal setting is to chunk it too. And I'm sure you know this when you talk to clients, is baby steps. Is you need those little interim wins as you go to help build momentum towards that larger goal. And you need to track progress, because if you're not tracking progress, you don't know if you're making progress. You don't know if you're going anywhere. So if you can't measure it, then you don't know if it's actually happening.
That is very true.
But again, yeah, it goes back to that visioning. I think the visioning is how you can help them get that excitement.
We are talking to Dr. Woody Woodward. Perhaps you've seen him on Fox Business. He's there regularly. He's also re-released his book, The U Plan, a 5-step guide to taking charge of your career in the new economy. Dr. Woody, tell me something. You were talking a minute ago about this concept of visioning, and you've spoken and you've written about what you refer to as road mapping. Right. Is that something that only applies to a career, or again, can we apply that to people who are dealing with personal goal setting and specifically, let's say, financial goal setting?
It all ties together. I mean, you get into a career so you can pay your bills at the end of the day. I mean, a career is something you get paid for. You get money. You have an income. And all careers have different types of incomes, different models. You could work for yourself. You could be with a big company. Maybe you have benefits. Maybe you don't. It all depends, right? Personal investing is part of your path to freedom, I truly believe. And so just like what we were talking about before, is this idea of a roadmap. Whether it's a career destination or a financial destination or a personal destination, you have to have a vision for where you're going. You have to understand what it looks like. You have to plot it on the map, and then you look at it. And the reason I call the book The U Plan is I cannot tell you exactly how to get there. You have to determine that for yourself, but you have to decide where you're going and which path is going to make the most sense to getting there. And it's the same for finance. Everybody has different financial situations. So you have to look at what yours are. What is your earning? What is your earning potential? What is the money you have? Where is it invested? And then where do you want to go with it? Because there are 10, 15, 20, who knows how many different ways to get to the same place. If I want to take the scenic route, I could take back roads. If I want to get there fast, I can take the express lane. If I want to pay a lot of money, I could get on a plane and go there. I mean, it all depends. So that's why it requires you sitting down, or you and your spouse, you and your kids. It all depends on your situation. And think about, where is it do I want to go? What is it that it's going to require to get there in the way that I want to get there? And what do I need to do? And how do I track my progress along the way? It's all about building that roadmap. And I think that any successful career and successful life does require you sitting down and thinking about, how are you going to pay for it?
So you're using the term success and successful, and certainly something that we're all striving for, but you've also spoken about failure. And in fact, you've said that failure is a choice. I find sometimes in picking stocks, I don't actually purposely choose the ones that go down, but it just happens to me. So, in fact,
Right.
I hear what you're saying, that if you don't try, then maybe you're choosing failure. But let's be real. In real life, failure comes knocking on the door sometimes, and you can't keep it closed.
Yeah, Doug, that's true. And I do use a little bit of hyperbole when I talk about failure being a choice. I don't know that it's always a choice, but oftentimes it is. And here's some examples of when it is a choice. And we all know, what is it, that the famous saying from Einstein is that if you continue to do the same thing over and over again but expect a different result, that's the definition of madness. I don't know how often I will see people continue down the same road or try the same things and expect a different result. The fact is, if you don't step back and seek critical feedback, try to rope in and take advantage of all the resources and relationships that you have, you're not going to be successful. And a lot of times I think what happens is they'll do the bare minimum, or they'll say, I'll do just enough to get by, or I'll do just enough to make it to where I need to go, or I'll live for the day. That's choosing to fail. Because you know that you can't just live day to day and expect to get by. You know that you can't build a business or a career by doing the bare minimum or letting go of your personal and professional networks, which is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. Is they get too laser focused on the job that they're doing or the career that they're in or the path they're going down. They forget about all the peripheral relationships they need to continue to build and maintain in case something goes wrong. And it's, again, checking yourself and having that roadmap. When you don't have a roadmap, when you're not focused on a vision, I believe you're choosing to fail.
It's funny, the term focus you're using is a word that comes up a lot on the show. I have a while back I interviewed a woman named Jamie Tardy. She runs an organization called the Eventual Millionaire. She herself is an eventual millionaire. She plans to be a millionaire one day. And her tool is to speak to lots and lots of millionaires in order to find out how they did it, and then she can learn. In fact, she does a piece on the Goldstein on Gelt show called the Goldstein on Gelt Millionaire Moment. So tune in every Monday night at 7 o'clock Israel time to hear, or just download the podcast at goldsteinongelt.com. But one of the things that Jamie has pointed out that she has heard over and over from her interviews with successful, mostly businessmen and women, is that focus is the number one key to success. And sometimes I think it's difficult for people to determine, is it more important to focus, which sometimes means you just keep trying the same thing over and over again, not that it's a sign of insanity, but that it's a sign of an incredible ability to, in fact, target like a laser. So I on the one hand, you said that you got to be careful you don't close yourself in. On the other hand, I do think that not getting too distracted is a proven key to success.
Absolutely. If you try to do too many things at once, you will definitely fail. That's a great recipe for failure. It's the scattershot approach. It's the shotgun approach. So I agree with you there. When it comes to focus, you need to make sure that you are – and focus doesn't mean doing the same thing over and over again. Focus means picking that target and going after that target and understanding what it'll take to get to that target. But you have to continue to adapt because that target may move as you go, or different obstacles may come up as you go. So that's why you have to be very careful, but you need to focus on what matters. And a lot of times I think failure in small business is when business owners wear too many hats and they're doing too many things that they don't understand or don't do well, and they're not willing to spend the money to bring in the experts or to hire the people to do the things or take stuff off their plate that they just should not be doing. And I deal with that when I work with managers and executives all the time in management development, is when managers rise up the chain but don't learn how to delegate, they end up failing because they end up being a worker and a manager, and you can't do both. It's like being the star player and trying to be the coach at the same time. You can't do it. But one other thing that you said that your previous guest mentioned that I like a lot, you said when in her concept around being the eventual millionaire, she went and hung out with a lot of millionaires.
Right.
If there's one piece of advice I tell people, go find the people that are doing what you want to do and immerse yourself in their world, because that is one of the best ways to learn. Be part of their community. Be immersed in who they are, how they do things. Get into their networks, because that will show you their paths, and it will show you that, and you could learn the things that they had to learn the hard way. You could learn them the easier way by them telling you. I'm a big believer in that. Whether it's you want to attain wealth, be around people who invest well, who've done well with it. You want to be in TV, then go to Hollywood, California, and hang out with people who are on TV. I mean, get in the world. It's hugely important.
All right. Listen, we are just about out of time. We have been talking to Dr. Woody, who wrote the book, The U Plan, a 5-step guide to taking charge of your career in the new economy. Dr. Woody, in the last few seconds, just tell me, how can people follow you?
Best way to find me is drwoody.com. It's just drwoody.com. And, of course, you could follow me on Twitter at Dr. Woody.
Okay. Dr. Woody, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.